anyways, that was gay. I want to start out by telling you this book is the book that got me to really understand things, and I will be showing you things from this book. Obviously, I don't do this professionally, so I'm probably going to screw it up. In my head, I have this order of things that I want to do it in, but I'm going to use that book to explain to you, as it explained to me, how scales and modes work, because it's brilliant. And on top of that, before I forget, I need to show you how you can use scales to do creative shit. Like, for example, the major scale that I have been showing you goes like this. Let's just start on A here, 5th fret. Obviously, the actual major scale ends there because that's the 2nd octave. So. Alright, well, I want to show you an example of a little riff I made based off of that scale, and I'll tab that for you, but here's how it goes if I can remember it without screwing it up. Very, very simple. So, let's see how I can explain this. Basically, this is the major scale. If you notice the second part of that riff, the first part is so it's I'm within that scale shape, and then I go down and I use my root note. So I start on the A here, and then I go to D. What I'm doing is now I'm taking this major scale shape from the key of A and I'm shifting it to the key of D, and so it's D major. So I'm changing from A major to D major, which is why when I come down here I'm not holding the same pattern that I normally am holding. So because for the A major scale shape, it doesn't actually contain this note here. Watch. For that shape, it's like this down at the bottom. But for the riff, I played this note. And I want to explain that. The whole reason that note exists is because I took this pattern and moved it down. And because this one string is tuned differently than all the rest, basically that major scale, instead of going, it goes, if I did that right, let me make sure I did that right. I messed one note up, but that's why that note exists. So I'm just going from A to D. Shit, now I forgot my own riff. So that's one example how you can just take a note. I'm not playing the A major scale all over the neck. You can do that if you want, and I can show you how to do that. It's very, very simple. This book here will show you. I want to show you one more example of creating a riff based off of a scale. There's a harmonic minor scale, and we'll just keep it simple. We'll keep it in the key of A here, and this is how it goes. So if we want to take that up the octaves, this is how it goes. normal with me. I like to use all 6 strings, so this is how I play it. Shit, I fucked that up. Go figure. So I took that scale, and you see how interesting you can do? Like, it's when you approach it, you just try to be creative with it. Just be random. So and a long time ago I actually came up with a riff, a very, very simple riff. It's I'm going to play it and then try to explain it. That's using every note. You know, what I mean is I didn't deviate from the notes of that scale. A very, very popular song by one of my favorite guitarists, Yngwie Malmsteen, is Far Beyond the Sun, and it uses the harmonic minor, and I want to explain. Remember how John Petrucci was playing the major scale like this? Or whatever the fuck he was doing. That's how unfamiliar I am with him playing it that way. He was playing it that way, I was playing it over here like this. Well, Yngwie's song starts off like this. Listen to the notes. Shit. Okay, so that's how it begins. But listen. Well, here is the. Let me see. This is the actual scale he uses. After he plays that part, he goes like this. And that's the harmonic minor descending scale. So he's like... But I can play the intro from that scale right here because it's the same notes. Okay, I might be playing a few of those notes wrong, but you get the idea. Those are the same notes, they're just in different places. And then he, how else does it go? Shit. I'm lost. Let me see. You can see that he's using all those notes of that scale, and he's just making a melody out of them. And really, just when you are so comfortable with a scale shape, you can just create shit out of thin air. And what you now find to be some sort of an amazing feat of creativity is nothing more than drawing off of things that are already inside of you And when you're not trying to force things, they can happen naturally. I don't really know if I can give you an example of that right now, but I'm going to try to just make another riff, or just try to play something with the A major scale, just because that's what we've been working with. So the scale. Let me see if I can do something. So let's get a. Extra note there on accident. Very simple melody there, or phrasing, or whatever you want to call it. Now, you were asking me in your other comment, was I playing the A major scale all over the neck, or was I playing different scales? That's what I'm going to get into with this book here. So I'm probably going to cut from this video and explain that, but the best I can do right now off the top of my head is to give you an example. Like when I was doing the arpeggios in the first video, and I was doing the major arpeggio. Then I went to the minor arpeggio. Those are two different keys. This is... shit. I don't even know what note this is. That's how bad I am. But here's the root note. Let me see, I gotta be able to figure out what note that is. I'm so not fresh on the guitar anymore that I don't even really know the key that I'm playing in right now. See, this is A. Now, see how my ignorance is showing here? A, D. This must be E, right? A, B, C, D, E. So E major. Yeah, duh, because it's the 7th fret. It's the octave. So this was E major. And then I transposed to whatever note that is. That's G sharp. So G sharp minor. Pardon me if I'm not right on the theory on this. I imagine I'll correct it if I'm really that wrong. But let's see what else we got here. Actually, with this book here, it will show you what a chord actually is anytime you have 3 or more notes, you've got a chord. When you're doing the traditional power chord, that's just the first note and the 5th. The reason they call that the 5th is because it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th note of the major scale. Remember, I said everything is named in reference to that major scale. Make sure I'm in focus here. So this power chord, that's not actually a chord, that's just an interval. An interval is the distance between 2 notes. Technically, I mean, this idea just popped into my head real quick. Let me give you an example. Sorry, I've been drinking. I'm a little goofy right now. So an interval is the distance between two notes. Not only can you move between two notes, you can also move between two chords or two patterns, to anything. So based on our major scale, our A major scale, let me, if I can remember, I know it says it in this book, and I'll show you that. The first note, of course, is the root note. The second note is called a major second because it's the second note that appears in the major scale. The third note is the major third. Listen to how it sounds. It sounds major. If I flatten that note, it becomes a minor third, and it sounds minor. Listen. So anyways, we have the first, the root note, major second, major third, and the next note, which is the fourth note, which is also down here, it's the fourth note in the pattern, is called a perfect fourth. Then we have a perfect fifth. And these two notes played together have this harmony. And the perfect fourth also, you can just play these two notes. Then we have a major sixth, which is the sixth note. Then you have the major seventh, which is right here. Then the octave, right here. So those are the intervals, and the way a chord is constructed is you take every other note of the scale. So if we're playing the major scale, if we take every other note, we'll have the first note, the third note, and then the fifth note. Anytime a chord contains a major third interval, it is a major chord. So remember yesterday how based on the way the guitar is tuned, we can have the same notes in different areas. If we take the root note, we have this note right here. This is A. And no, I'm not going to name the fucking notes because I don't know them at the moment. So I'll just use the terms, the numbers, and the roots. So we have our root note right there. Here's the second, but we got to skip that because we're making a traditional chord here. We're going to go straight to the third note. So because this is the third note of a major scale, this is going to be a major chord. But we can't play this note and this note on the same string, right? We have to move this note to the next string. So first and third so far. Now, we also need the next note. The very next note would be the perfect fourth, but we're skipping that note because we're only adding every other note to create this chord. So the next note that we can actually use is the fifth, the perfect fifth. So we have this note, the first, the third, and the fifth. And then if we skip again, we'll be skipping the seventh, and we'll add the first again. That is a major, the notes of the major scale, or the major chord, same thing. So we have to transpose the fifth now, because we can't play the third and the fifth on the same string. Does that make sense? So we have the first, the third, which is here, and then the fifth, which we will move to here. So if we play these three notes like this, let me see if we focus here more. Let me actually zoom in a little if I can. So we have the first, third, and the fifth. We have three notes, and we can now make the A major chord if we just play these three notes. now we're coming into a problem. We have 3 more strings we can use, so what do? Well, we repeat the pattern. We find the first, the third, the fifth. Well, we have room to add more notes. So what notes do we want to add? Let's just keep repeating that pattern. So let's find the first again. The octave of the first is right here. So now we have 1, 3, 5, 1. Let's see what else we got here. That's a third right there. So we can... The octaves on a guitar are very easy to find. This note, the octave of that note will be down 2 strings and over 2 frets. Unless you're using this section. If you're any octave on this 5th string is going to be over 1 more because it's tuned 1 fret differently than their other strings. So if you want to find it in a different way, the root of this note will be down 3 strings, 1, 2, 3, and back 2 notes. So the octave, shit, hold on. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So it's down 3 strings, 1, 2, 3, and back 4 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4. So to continue building this chord, we have the first note, which is the root note, the third, the fifth, the first, the third, and because we have a high E string and a low E string, we know that any note we play up here, we can also play down here. So automatically, if we start here, we can add this note too. The problem is, we can't really reach that with what we have available. You know, we can't do that. So let's try to find what other notes can we add. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. Okay, well. We could actually just leave that string open. What else do we have? What note is that? That might be the 5th, I think. Yep. This open E string down here is actually the 5th of the scale. So we could leave it like that and just play, we could bar that. Let's see though, what do we want to do? 5th, 6th. Basically, okay, so that's one way we could try to build that chord, but I'm sure you know what a bar chord is, and I can explain the notes of this bar chord to you just as soon as my camera cools down, because it's already overheating again. I'll get back with you on that. And so I will explain the notes of this bar chord. Here's the root, the 1, the 5, and then also right underneath here, the octave. So far we have 1, 5, 1, and then we also have this note right here. Let's figure out what that note is. That's the 3rd note. It's the octave of the 3rd note. So we have 1, 5, 1, 3. This is the one note out of that whole bar chord that makes it a major chord. So 1, 5, 1, 3. This is the octave of the 5th. So this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, and then because it's a bar chord and the top and bottom notes are the same, this is another 1. So that's how that works. So if this is the only 3 in the entire chord, and the major third or minor third determines whether that chord is major or minor, if I flat this major third and make it a minor third, it then makes it a minor chord. So all I have to do is lift my finger off, and so the notes I'll be playing is 1, 5, 1, flat third, or minor third, 5, and 1. Major, huge difference, right? Huge difference, all based on that one little difference that we have there. So one thing that I love to do is play arpeggios. And an arpeggio is nothing more than a chord played one note at a time. And obviously we can't play all the notes on one string, so we have to move those as well. So basically here is one of the arpeggios I play a lot. This is a major arpeggio. I don't add that note very often because I normally just go. But if I want to tap that extra note, I can. Okay, so let's figure out these notes, what these notes are. This is the very first note we're playing, and it is the lowest note. And our ears determine the pitch or the key of a chord or a scale based on the lowest note. And the lowest note that appears here is an E. So the next note, let's just build that arpeggio as if we didn't know it and the only thing we had to go by was our major scale. So our major scale starting from this string is this. If you know those 7 notes of that scale and you know how to find their octaves, you can build a chord anywhere. And I'll show you. So we have the 1, obviously. And the way that we're going to build this chord is we're going to take every other note of the scale. It's basically like you have a scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes of that scale. And you take half of them. And then you put them together and that you get the overall tonality of that scale. So let's go starting from E. This is our first note. Every other note we have 1, 3, 5, and then our octave. It's very, very simple. Basic major and minor chords only contain the root, the 5th, and the major or minor third. Either way, if it's a major third or a minor third, it's still going to be the 3rd note in that scale. So if you're playing a minor scale, you're going to take the 3rd note out of that scale, and it's just so happened going to be the interval is going to be a minor third. But in this case, because we're using the major scale in the key of E, it doesn't matter what key it's in. I just said that so that you can remember. It is always going to be a minor third or a major third interval. So let's build that chord or that scale. Or I'm sorry, the arpeggio. Okay, so we have 1, 3, 5. Now what we need to do is find the octaves, right? So now the octave of the 5th. How else can we find that octave? We can find it down here. Wait, where is it? Sorry. That's another 1. 1, 3, 5, 1. It's an octave of our 3. So this note here, that is an octave of our fifth. So we have 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. Now, the interesting thing is, because an arpeggio is every other note, we're breaking the available notes down from 7 to 3. We now have 3 starting points. We have the first, the root, the second note of the scale, which would be the fifth, the third, and then the fifth note, which is, you get it, the root, the third, and the fifth. We can't add any onto that for our basic chord because we run out. We go straight to the octave next. So we can either start our arpeggios on the first note, the second note, or the third note. This major arpeggio starts on the first note. Listen to the first note. Well, where's the second note at? Sorry, it's right there. If we let me see how we do this here. That's another way to play the same fucking scale or chord. I'm getting a little lost here in what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to explain is that just like you can play scales in modes, and however many notes that scale has is however many modes you can build out of that scale. It's kind of the same thing. Well, actually, it's exactly the same thing for arpeggios. So let me see how I can do this here. I know... okay, I think the next one is... Where is it? So I think that's kind of like this... Okay, because it's starting from the second one. Right? I'm a little... It's been a while since I've tried to do this. Okay, so let me think of another way I can demonstrate this. If we just start from the G on the open here, and we build that arpeggio. So the major scale from the G string, or I'm sorry, from the G note goes. So let's take every other note. 1, 3, 5. This is basically an arpeggio right here. If we wanted to go up in the mode and start at the second, where would we have to end up at? That is actually a minor arpeggio. We're coming into a roadblock in terms of my explanation here. And my camera's overheating again. How awesome. I will just have to explain this via my pictures on the Guitar Grimoire. I'm going to have to end that for now. I know we're getting really long, so if you have any more questions, feel free to post them. Take care, buddy.